when we're in a place that isn't corrupt in the way this place is, where there isn't a line, as there is here along the Shannon, which divides one part of the country from the other part of the country. The other big thing that we need to say to ourselves is, not just are we going to put up with this, because I think we'll put up with it for too long. You know? And I remember a friend of mine saying one time, and he wasn't actually that active, but he said to me, we need to go on an offensive. And I says, I'm not as big an offensive as I can go on. You know? There's no point in waiting for leaders to arrive. They're not going to arrive. You're the leadership that we're waiting on. People out there. Because one of the things that's really brilliant about the work that I do is that I meet brilliant people. Small people. People who are courage. People who do look after the underage team. People who do look after the tiny towns. People who do reach out to those kids who fall into trouble. People who do work in suicide prevention. People who do work in the environment. People who make a little stand. Who all the time, people who play music. People who write songs. All those people are out there. Holding our society together. And they're the other Ireland. And it isn't even a matter of us empowering people. You can't empower anyone. You can create conditions and people have to empower themselves. James Connolly wrote about the reconquest of Ireland by the Irish people. And there's a huge amount of wisdom in that sense, because that's about people becoming informed. That's about people getting themselves educated, knowing their rights, not being dogmatic or domineering, but just simply asserting themselves and standing up for other people who may not be able to stand up for themselves. What we're seeing now under this government, and it may be quite unique in the history of the world, is the recolonisation of Ireland by ourselves. Can't blame the Brits. No? So, can it be changed? Yes, it can be changed. And I see people, there's a quiet little revolution going on. The first time since this government came in that people were asked to volunteer for an austerity measure was in the Household Charters. It's the first time people were given a choice. Would you register? Or would you pay for this? And less than 1 million people said no, they wouldn't. And arguably it's much, much more than that, because in most households there's more than one adult. Okay? That was a huge stand. That wasn't, thousands of people out in the square here. That was people around their own kitchen tables. Some people obviously couldn't pay it, but a lot of people decided they weren't going to pay it. And even those who did pay it, did so under duress and under protest. You can see it in the stand taken by the people down in Rossford. And that's going on. Still going on. We were down, Martin and Trevor were down last week, I was down the week before. You can see it with the turf cutters. Turf cutters making a stand for themselves. You can see it in terms of the septic tank charges. It's an absurdity. You live in a city, or you live in an urban area, you get sewage. You live in the country, you dig your own. Right? And this 20 years, successive governments have had this regulation from the EU which never acted on. And then all of a sudden they decide to act on it. So you live in the country. Right? Even though you may have got planning permission for a septic tank that you built 2 years ago, you're being told to change it and pay for it. And so on. Right. A woman in Moore Street, I'll come back to Moore Street for a moment, said to me, they must think we're all God shakes. And I don't like using crude language, but they do. They do, because there's a little elite. There's a little elite in Kirkle Orca, a little golden circle. And they earn money like we just don't even have the notion of it. I don't mean they earn it. They're given or they take money that we don't have an ocean. You know, the Irish cement issue was resolved, thankfully, today. The Irish Cement is a very, very, very profitable company. The CEO got $2 million last year in bonuses. Imagine that, 2 million. Would you like it? It's amazing. Now, if I get these guys have to go out on the picket line, like the folks down in Vita Cortex had to stick at it for I don't know how many in a huge long time. Went through. And then there's a scam around Vodafone, which Vodafone was earned by Aircom, and it was a very, very, very profitable company, and it was a public company, and so on and so forth. It was sold off, probably as a part of a dodgy deal. And now they have reduced their workforce in this state. They outsourced, this is a new word, outsourced to India and Egypt and somewhere else. But one of the workers told us, and I don't have all of this exactly accurate, but you'll get the general sense of it. See if you text, that's processed in Spain. See if you send a photograph, that's processed somewhere else. See if you send, because it's cheaper in all of those, they put this little package together. And obviously the terms and conditions for the workers in those places are cheaper. So all we do here is we're just a service client. And yet they got huge incentives, they have huge tax, they use us almost as a tax haven. And I met a pair of Vodafone workers who have been told they have to go to Newry because it's cheaper up there for the company. And one guy said, and we were with the minister, Pat Rabbitt, when he said it, I want to make a contribution to this state. I'm a citizen of this state. I have to work up there, I don't even pay my taxes into this jurisdiction, and I can't even get a medical card. I'm now I have to get a medical card, I'm now a frontier worker. But that's the way it works. So what's the story of the about? What's all that about? It's called capitalism. So, when the recession is over, and it's all sorted out, do we want us to be in the same place as we are, and the fat cats reinvent themselves, and then somebody decides we'll have a tribunal to figure out where it all happened? Or do we want to make a real change, actually reshaping the way this society works? And that's what we can do. On the 1st of June, all the problems that we have will continue, whether people vote no or whether people vote yes. They'll still be here. None of these things will be sorted out in one action or by one act. But we have to set a different direction. Now, I want to talk for a moment or two about the government, just for a moment or two, and then I'll finish up. The government discovered that the French candidate for the Socialist Party just might get elected. And this particular chap was arguing for all the things that they didn't argue for. And then they looked to where the bandwagon was and they hooked themselves to that bandwagon. And we now have a Taoiseach and we now have a Taoiseach who are dependent, and this is in their public utterances, on a French president changing a treaty which they found acceptable. Listen to what they're saying. Changes in France and the Merkel and the Hollande, blah, 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 blah. If the Spanish banks get some sort of a write-down, then perhaps we may get some sort of write-down. Meghan and the Taoiseach yesterday in the Dáil. The Taoiseach refused to ask for a write-down. All the billions that were put down into Anglo-Irish and all of those other toxic banks, he refused to ask for it. Not only did he refuse to ask for it, but he boasted that he would not ask for it, because he wouldn't like the Irish to go around the world with the term defaulter stopped on our foreheads. That's what he said. The issue around where the government sits in all of these issues, and the reason why people are so annoyed, in my humble opinion, is because the government was elected to do exactly the opposite of what it's doing. That's why people are so mad. And the reason why people are a bit dispirited, because some people, in their heart of hearts, know that they voted for them. So it's, in a funny way, it's our sort of fault. And people feel that in themselves, even though they voted for them in good faith because they wanted rid of the other crowd, and they were being told that it would be Labour's way or Frankfurt's way, and another red cent in the banks, and this is a people's revolution, and we're going to build a real republic. So we have to change all of that. And the 31st gives us the opportunity to give guidance to this government. Now, I think the government's out of its depth in terms of dealing with the stuff at the EU. And I once said about Meghan McDowell, I wouldn't send him out to buy a bottle of milk. So he's now had a couple of compound euros, but I wouldn't send him out to buy a bottle of milk either. But there is a European Union-wide movement of citizens. It doesn't matter what a land does, right? It doesn't matter. What matters is that the French people said, we want jobs. We want money in the public services. We want rights. Okay, we have to tighten up and we have to get rid of the rest, but we want incentives that will stimulate our economy. And the Germans said it the other day as well, and the people in the Netherlands said it, and the people in Greece are saying it, and increasingly people in Spain and other European states are saying it. Even in Britain, during the local government elections, they said it as well, where they punished Cameron for austerity policies. So this referendum campaign gives us the opportunity to join that tide and to set a new direction. And I want to come back to Moore Street, and I just want to finish up with one other point. We have a motion going down in the Dáil next Tuesday, which is asking for the government to develop Moore Street as a national monument. Now, I don't know if you know Moore Street. Moore Street runs parallel to O'Connell Street, and it's famously where all the fruit stalls are and so on. But when the garrison came out of the GPO, right, now, there's a big window there, there's not a door, but it came out into Elm Street, and it went left. Right, and there were about 300 men and women. And then they went right up Moore Lane, and there's a long terrace, and they cut their way into the terrace, and they cut their way through all the dividing walls, and there were 300 of them occupied that terrace. The O'Rourke was famously killed just at the corner. Now, it is a slum. We're going there tomorrow, but there's no signage on it. There's some shops, but it's mostly empty, defunct, just dirty. There's sewage running. It's a shame. But in a funny way, it's symbolic of where we are in terms of these big issues. Now, the relatives of the signatories of the proclamation have been campaigning for a long time, and they wrote a motion for us, and they're coming into the Dáil with us. Pierce and McDonald and Clark and all the rest of them, Conley, their relatives are coming in because they want this developed, and they want to develop it properly. But here's the rub. Who owns it? Joe O'Reilly. Who's Joe O'Reilly? Joe O'Reilly's a big developer. He's been nominated for nominating. Joe O'Reilly has been given permission conditionally for development. To knock all of that down, right, and to build a multi-story mall running from where the Carlton Cinema and the Royal Dublin Hotel were right back into Moore Street, and all of that will disappear. Who owns Navan? You do. So you're going to pay for this big developer to demolish and vandalize. You know, think about it. Go to France. You know, you won't be brought into a little slum. You'll see the Bastille. Go to London. You'll see their national monuments. Go to the States. Go to the Alamo. Go to Boston. Go to anywhere in the world. Go to Cuba. Go to anywhere in the world, and you'll see that their symbols and their heritage and their legacy and their secret spots where independence was proclaimed is preserved. So it'll be interesting to see how this debate goes. And I do think that it is a little test of where we are as people. Tom Clark's shop's just across the road. It's hidden behind Centra or something. You can't even see the place because it was back in a shop. There's no sign. He was stripped naked at the return to the hospital. What we want to do, and what the relatives want to do, is to develop that as a liberation quarter, apart from the history and the education and so on, but some place that you can bring tourists, some place that you can have interactive connections with people, that you can lift the city of Dublin and the North Side. So I've talked for too long. This is my last thing I want to say. Martin talked about empowerment, and we have empowerment and so on. If every single person here decided over the next few days, if you're persuaded by our arguments, right, if you think that what we're saying makes a bit of sense, every single person here decided to be part of that, and just sit down quietly for an hour with a piece of paper and write down the names of all of the people you know, your friends, your family, if you're lucky enough to be your workmates, your football team, just write them all down. And then just very quietly, you don't have to be part of any formal thing, just very quietly, try and get them to make a stand. Text them, Twitter them, phone them up. You don't even have to go leave the living room, just try and get them to make a stand. Because we can't turn this around. We can't win this struggle which has bedeviled us for centuries. And we can be a people who will ship out an Ireland that won't have our children being reared for export. They want to go for a year, great. For 2 years, great. But they can live here in a free Ireland, which is a genuine republic, and in which rural Ireland is valued, and which, in the words of the proclamation, all the children of the nation are cherished equally. We're a meal